Yes. So here we are again, continuing the conversations we have had over the last couple of weeks, talking about our language as it relates to how the Jamaican language juxtaposes on top of and within and outside of what we call standard English. And here we have again my brother Anthony Perry will engage us in some understanding of or understanding the misunderstandings that we might have about the language. I want to take this opportunity to thank those who have been supportive of this endeavor. And for those of you who see it on YouTube, just like and subscribe, the notification, hit the notification button so that you can get the subsequent series. Because this is going to be about a five-part series doing this particular subject. But for the long haul, this podcast is going to be just telling stories as it relates to our lives growing up Portland, Jamaica, West Indies. So we just want to continue the conversation that we have been having regarding the language. And with that, Anthony, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Every time I think about this topic going up, Paul, it just opens up a whole set of issues, and it's not going to end.
Yeah.
And because language is so dynamic, this conversation is going to go on forever. And I'm sure some of the listeners to these conversations have their own position. It's also one of perception, one's own place in the world in their relation to language and language use. Let me just stick out by saying something very quickly. Those of us who went to Teachfield during the 50s and the 60s must have heard about Maggie Thomas and Cap Thomas. Cap was a principal, and Maggie taught, I think, English and Latin. They didn't actually teach me, but I ran into them, and I'm saying this, ran into them, when I went to Teachers College. Both of them were lecturers at St. Joseph Teachers College, and Paul, they took a different position on language use. Cap Thomas didn't believe that, he felt that punctuation marks cluttered up writing.
He thought that really?
He thought, yes, that semicolons and colons and hyphens and full stops and commas cluttered up writing. I've only come to learn, Paul, that in law does not rely on punctuation marks. Law relies on positions of words in a sentence. And there's a whole thing about legal writing, which is very different.
Right.
And to talk about Jamaican, for example, when you go, some parts of Jamaica, you might go to a child and you say, pick me where your mama there. Mama. The little girl looks at you and say, him gonna walk. Him. Right? And say, oh my God, this picnic don't know the difference between him and her. Incidentally, Paul, in law, they make no distinction between him and her in British law. Him refers to him, and him also refers to her. Of course, we now know with the whole business of gender, he and she, they and their is all now part of the conversation about the pronoun people use to describe. But I wouldn't pay much attention to that. But I learned language education through Maggie and Cap Thomas at St. Joseph Teachers College.
Interesting.
I never spent any time talking about preposition, word, adverbial word, clause of time and place. Language is learned through the literatures we read, right?
Yeah.
But we must not also confuse Jamaican words that say very different things in British English. Let me give you one, hush. When a Jamaican says hush to a Trini,
right,
or a Bajan,
right,
then I mean, sorry if you hear with distress about your boyfriend. They mean you're telling him to shut up.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We know that some of you Jamaicans in foreign gone and talk about Jamaican pear is avocado and not pear. you can go ask avocado on a street corner at Jamaica. A pear is a pear, not an avocado. Okay?
I've never seen that avocado. No, what is that, sir? Yes, sir.
Exactly. And what is an iron board? It's an ironing board.
Yes, a board made for
Ironing, not
ironing,
an
right.
iron board, because
Yes.
an iron board are two different substances.
Right,
Iron
right.
and board don't go together.
Exactly.
Take another classic one, Paul. You know what a bull cow is? A hermaphrodite.
Right.
And only a Jamaican
Right.
talk about a bull cow come. Well, you
Right.
run the road and talk about it's not a bull cow, but it's a
Right.
cow. A
Right.
bull cow.
Oh, right.
And if you take it genetically, there's
Yes.
no such animal as a bull cow.
Right.
Right? But Paul, some of the Jamaican words, because of the evolution, just drop out of popular use. Take the word boops. I don't know if you know the word BOOPS. Nobody uses that in a word, that word anymore.
Right.
It's a Jamaican word used any man
Right.
who gave up the dollars,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
at the right time.
Right.
What are they called now? And I think it has come out of North America.
Right. Yes.
And by the way, Paul,
Yes.
what goes with pear in Jamaica?
Right.
We know the pear, not avocado. What
Right.
goes with pear in Jamaica?
When I say bulla, maybe.
Bulla.
Right.
Don't go to Trinidad and ask for a bulla. You might just be surprised of what you get.
Right.
So even our Jamaican way, you know, which is peculiar to us, right?
Right.
Take the Port Antonio pastry from Coronation Market called Grotto.
Right.
Every Portlander, if you come from Port Antonio, know what a grotto is. It is not an underground cave with water,
right,
like the Green Grotto caves. Okay?
Exactly.
And I think, and I'm not sure, it comes from the French word gâteau.
Right.
Gateau, which is a French kind of pastry.
Right.
By the way, the word patty caused a stir in Canada many years ago.
Right.
And in fact, it's Jamaicans had to own the word and say, look, a patty is not a pie.
Right.
And every Jamaican know what a patty is. You cannot go into a Jamaican shop and ask for a pie.
Right.
You ask for a
patty. So to speak.
Okay. And remember, I said not all words mean the same thing across the country.
Across the country, across
Jamaica. Take boyo. You know what boyo is?
Yes.
What is it?
When you cook the cornmeal in the banana leaf or the leaf or whatever it is. Yes. With raisin or whatever.
It is called something else.
Blue draws.
Right. And dukunu is a heavier food to it.
Right.
Kaya leaf.
Yes.
It is called elsewhere.
Right.
But as we go back a bit, Paul, it is not by accident we're having this conversation about English and Jamaican. Remember, all of these trust schools that were established in the 18th century was established with one deliberate plan. They were to take the poor and undereducated Black people, like you and I, and you were to be taught English and all that comes with Britishness.
Right.
Not only the language and speaking it correctly, but the behaviors, knife and fork.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Certain way, kind of thing. Yes.
And you are to dress a certain way.
Right.
Yeah. The necktie, and as my brother would say, the monkey suits that many of still wear in 90 degrees temperature, sweltering summer heat is not by chance.
Yes.
Yeah. So remember that the language that we are putting down today, is because a lot of us felt ashamed of how we looked, how we spoke, and how we dressed. And incidentally, BBC had a BBC, what is called an accepted register. So everybody who went to read the news at BBC had to sound a certain way.
Right. And I think, and before I put that, I remember growing up, there were certain radio personalities. Had you not known who they were in terms of seeing their faces, you would not have known, because they had this affect to their voice and the way they threw their voice,
And it's
they,
not by
and projected
and it's
their,
not by and it's not by
accident.
chance.
Right. Because
Okay.
remember now, when I was young, RGR was what they call RGR meant Radio Jamaica and rediffusion, which meant that they were actually just regurgitating stuff coming out of England or wherever.
Right.
They didn't have an original programming. So the people who came on board with time had to kind of adapt to that kind of language structure, that kind of projection, that kind of effect in their voice. Yes, indeed.
And so, Paul, the passing on of these behaviors and in speech and behavior came through the trust schools,
yes,
then the teachers' colleges, because what is supposed to happen, you'll go back into your rural setting and pass on correct speech and or the behaviors. And you go to the Anglican church, you sang from the hymn books, those kinds of things. But let me just switch a bit about Jamaican words. Only Jamaica knows what bully beef is. You agree? Managed water, and it's not managed water. It's managed water.
Yes.
Pranganat. Do you ever say to anybody pomegranate?
Yes, pomegranate, yes.
Oh. And if you only Jamaicans know what box food is and box drink is. Okay?
Yes, indeed.
And I had this experience and I joke about it because I went to a place and I asked the woman, what do you have on the menu? She says, sliced fish. I said, lady, slice is not a fish. Slice is not a fish. It's what you do to the fish when you catch the fish.
Right,
and the woman looked at me and said, where this mad old man come from with that? But Paul, take all these things we use in food.
Yes.
Fry fish is not fried fish.
Right.
Stew beef is not stewed beef.
Yes.
Jerk chicken is not jerked chicken.
Right.
So the pedants would say, when they say curry goat, what kind of goat is that? Curried is what you do to the goat meat.
Right.
Right? And this business about double negatives, Paul, Jamaicans used to say, me nah give you none.
Right.
It's an emphasizing the negative.
Right.
You are not getting any.
Yes,
not getting any is not as profoundly poignant and exact as you now get none.
Yes, indeed.
Right. The other thing too, we ask questions in the inflection of our voice. Yeah, come with me. When in English it said, are you coming with me? We ask the questions in our voice. You want any? Yes?
Exactly. I know, so I'm going to stop it there for a minute. What is ironic about what you're saying, is that we have kind of come, not full circle, but somewhere around full circle, where the adaptation of our language from foreigners, people outside of Jamaica, it's not like somebody just wants to learn to say wagwan, but there are people who seriously want to understand you, want you to speak to them.
And that is why when
we're comfortable with you.
And that's why when I start this conversation, I refer you to some of the prominent linguists that have come out of this region and through the University of West Indies.
Yeah.
Carlin Cooper writes in 2 forms of Jamaican patois. Hubert Devonish, who I talked about, who taught a select group of primary school children in Jamaican patois, were doing at that time common entrance. And I said to you that they never did any. Those who were continued taught in English didn't do any better than those who were taught in Jamaican patois. Cassidy and Lepage, for example, have a whole dictionary of Jamaican words and the lexicon. And Paul, the other thing that could make us twisted all over is Jamaican place names.
We're going to stop there for this evening. We're going to stop there for this evening because that is an interesting, that's a subject all on its own, and I'd like to broach that.
And right. And the point I'm going to make of that, Paul, is that you cannot anglicize those. And I leave you with this one. Friend of mine, we're colleagues in English, and she lives near Castleton, not Castleton. She lives near Castleton in St. Mary.
Right.
There's a place before you get to Grandy Hole, and people don't like to call the word Grandy Hole, you know.
Right.
All right, Volga. There's a place called Jackass Hole. And her mother said she scolded her daughters from saying Jackass Hole. Is where the horses used to come to drink water. When you go, before you turn down to go to Brandon Hill, if you know the junction
I know
road,
that
there's a road on
junction.
the right. And there's a winding road. Unfortunately, that's where the truck from Millbank went over near that corner. Very, very steep, precipitous area. There's a place where water comes out of the rock where people from countryside will carry their horses when they go and they stop and drink water.
Right.
The people call it arsehole, but it's horse's hole.
Right.
And to anglicize it makes it proper.
Yes. And in essence, it kind of just lose the value of
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. And Paul, I don't want it to, well, not descend. We could take, for example, the Jamaican body parts as another classic example of how our language have put a whole new spin on the color and the profundity of the language in many, many ways.
In many ways. All right. So with that, I'm going to leave you with I've told this little reference that I have from a friend who visited Jamaica many years ago with his wife, and they trot off in the wilderness of St. James to go drink a restaurant there, and they ran into some little youth sitting on the corner, and one of them was a little white youth. I mean, back then they didn't even realize that children grew up white and Indian and black and Jewish and so on, all mixed together in communities that not uptown, downtown, are just communities in rural Jamaica. So the wife wandered off somewhere different from the husband, and the husband ran into these youth sitting on a culvert. And he said, how do I get back to the bar that Mr. John bar down the road? And one of the little youth, the little white youth, blonde hair, blue-eyed white youth, just look up on him and say, kiss my ass, I lost him last. And for that, until this day, that man will never, ever forget. And what I'm saying is how the cross-section of the little youth skin color, the blonde hair, the blue eye, and his language pattern was completely off-putting. So it's not off-putting in a negative way, but to throw him a curveball.
Throw him for a loop, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And we'll see many examples of that.
Unfortunately, many people make assessment about people based on their language.
Yes.
And it happens all over the world.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And it's an important point to make. Very important point.
Once again, just so you all know, this is not a master class, it's not a TED Talk, it's not a language class. No certifications will be issued here. We just ask you to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell, so that when we produce these little snippets of of knowledge and conversation, you can be notified and you can keep abreast as to what we're doing. This is the third in many part series that we'll be doing moving forward. Once again, my brother, thank you. Good seeing you. Take care of yourself and all the best. All right.
And CAR is not car, it's CAR. And DOG is not dog.
No,
it's
dog.
It's not dog, it's dog.
Dog. So yes, sir. Thank you very much. And with that,
take care.
Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.
Yeah, man.